very grateful to have you here, Hartmut. You just gave a very interesting conference, and I have a few questions for you.
Yeah, okay.
The first one is, which kind of society are we living on?
Yeah, I think we are living almost on global scales, right? In Latin America, like in Europe, in Northern America or Asia, in a society which is characterized by what I call the mode of dynamic stabilization, which means that in order to keep our institutional structure, the jobs, for example, but also the pension schemes, the healthcare schemes, the educational programs and so on, we can only keep them if we permanently increase our outputs, if you so like, right? We have to accelerate, achieve economic growth, come up with permanent innovations. But we have lost the sense that this growth and innovation will help us to get into a better age, right? To enable our kids to have a better life. So we have to run faster and faster every year just to stay where we are. And I think this creates a sense of frustration.
How can we get out of that?
And that's the huge question, right? I mean, I think that it's not easy, right? And I think you cannot come up with a 5 steps to a better society or so, right? It really involves changes on almost all forms of existence. You could call it a paradigm change, right? And I think this paradigm change, on the one hand, has to be kind of, it's even a cultural change in the whole mode of existence. We are aspiring towards control over the world, right? We want to possess it, we want to control it and dominate it and so on, but we also have to control it through this institutional logic of dynamic stabilization. So what we need is a kind of dual reform. On the one hand, we need institutional reform. I think the current form of capitalism, right, of financially driven capitalism is so much connected to the logic of dynamic stabilization. It's capital accumulation driving the process. So we need to come up with new forms of more democratic economy, right? Which might have some place for market and competition, but it cannot be totally disembedded. But we also need a different conception of the good life, of what we are aspiring to. And this is what I wanted to define with my writings on resonance, right? So we need to create a resonant society that does not seek domination, control, and live on competition and aggression, but it lives on resonance, being in resonance with people, being in resonance with nature, with history, and even with ourselves. So I'm looking for a dual revolution, if you so like, one cultural and the other institutional.
I understand. And how does this type of society affect us?
Yeah, I mean, look at us, really. It's really true. I think there is so much all over the world. What is rising are two things which result from this mode of aggression. We are in permanent aggression with the world, and you see it from your to-do list, right? I mean, in the morning you don't get up because you have slept enough or because the sun comes up, but you are awoken by your alarm clock. You're alarmed. You jump into the world, and there you have an incredibly long to-do list. I have to do this and that. It's a point of attack. And this leads to two forms of frustration, I would say. One is really anger. You see it rising on all levels of existence. People are permanently angry, right? Very often at the government, but not just, right? They're even angry at themselves, right? So one form is anger and frustration, which might lead to conflict and riots. The other is what we see as mental health problems leading to burnout. We are burning out from the inside, right? Yes. So I think a resonant mode of being in the way is helping against both of this, right? It leads to a kind of, to a positive form of being in the world. It's a different form, it's a more healthy form of connecting to yourself, to your people you live with, and even to your work, right? But it's important for me that resonance is not something you can do on your own. It's not a subjective or emotional state. It's a form of relationship. So therefore, we also have to pay attention to the institutions which create these relationships.
And do you think it's possible, this change, it's near, or it's like an utopia?
I mean, the world doesn't look like it becoming more resonant right now, right? On all levels. I mean, you see all the conflicts almost exploding. The climate crisis, then there is war in Ukraine, for example, right? Which Europeans are obsessed with. But there's also conflict within societies, and so it doesn't look like we're becoming a more burnt, more resonant world. But sometimes it's through crisis that something changes, and I'm still at least a bit optimistic, right? because I think resonance is something which is defining us as human beings. It's not something we have to learn, right? It's in us. We would not become subjects, human subjects. We become subjects through the eyes of the other, through getting in resonance with the mother or the father who is taking care of us. When you look at small children, right? Getting in resonance with the world is defining us as human beings. So the potential for revolution, right, is there. And therefore I'm still optimistic.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, very welcome.
It's a nice thing to have you here.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, it was a pleasure for me too. And I wish good luck for Chile and the process of constitution making.
Thank you.
You're welcome.